Jamie here, JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. August 21st, 2024. We have about 27 minutes to the open. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Talk really quick about the markets. A little bit some of the names I traded yesterday. If you didn't take a look, I'll see if I can post a rant, but I did a mid-afternoon rant on some of the trades I made and go from there. But welcome to Fed Minute Wednesday. We'll have to see how the Fed minutes come out at 2 o'clock today. I actually think there's less relevance to the Fed minutes today than there would normally be with Fed Chair Powell speaking at Jackson Hole on Friday. And today is also the benchmark revisions for U.S. employment from 2023 to the spring of 2024, from the spring of 2023 to the spring of 2024. So similar to GDP numbers, right? So GDP numbers, when we get them, it's already backwards looking. It's the last 3 months of economic performance for the U.S. economy, and that's given after the 3 months, right? So it's a backward looking number. And here we go. I've never heard this benchmark revision for U.S. employment in the 15 years I've been doing this. Uh, it's just, I've never heard it before. It's almost like the jobs report came out, surprised folks, and uh, now this is a big headline, similar to what the JOLTS report was doing last summer. But we'll see what happens here. It's funny the SPY was not, well, not funny, but the S&P was down barely 0.2%, but it seemed like the names that had rallied over the last week or so since the Nikkei lows, I guess you would call it, have they took it on the chin yesterday. So consolidation, profit taking is not to be unexpected, but it does hurt to be in some of the calls. But that's why, similar, and I'll talk about SE in a little bit. Thankful to close some of those out. Not to say that those calls won't end higher at some point, but it helps. You know, it's like salt in the wound. But if you have closed a position, it's not as painful. All right, so you take a look at this, the SPY, that 555 handle from Friday. That's support. Same with 557 from yesterday. If 557 breaks, if for some reason we get some pull at the open, which seems to be the pattern, we get an open in the green or flat, markets sell off till about 10:30, and then reverse. Yesterday, the markets tried to reverse. They struggled and then just pretty much flatlined for the rest of the day. If we have a similar setup here and then markets can't find a bid and then they creep under 557, I'll look for some put hedges. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I'm not going to rule it out. Similar suspects that I'll be looking for hedge puts on: LRCX, ServiceNow, uh, those type of names. So that's the SPY. IWM came all the way up to 215 and then closed down 1%. Just when it looked like it was starting to outperform, it underperformed. Hopefully, just an outlier here, some consolidation after the last 3 sessions to the upside, and then it can finally find some footing. And then the VIX, and I talked about the VIX yesterday. I figured around 15 or so into Fed Chair Powell on Friday, so I would assume that's going to continue to be the case. It's up at 16 right now, probably trades 15 to 16, pending any crazy shenanigans today, and that's probably the spot for it now. And then if Fed Chair Powell can kind of ease some concerns, I think then it starts its melt further to the downside. So that's that. So individual names, not going to talk too quick about some of the names I've ranted on, too long about some of the names I've ranted on for the last week or two. But SE Limited finally in the red, gave back some of the gains from Monday. Still closed above that 80 handle. I think it's a big spot there. I'd closed my August 80 strikes in for some nice profits on Monday. Still have some September strikes. If it shows some strength here today, may look to get some later dated strikes as well to play for that eventual move into the triple digits. Block also a rough session yesterday, nearly down 3%, still over its 50-day moving average. Some of that, or most of that, I think has to do with some of the other crypto names that sold off. You saw Coin, MSTR selling off, which just had their split. Hopefully it finds some footing here. I still think that heads to 70 bucks. Won't add anything just yet. The 200-day moving average is at 69 and change, or is it, no, 68.46. If you can get over that, I think that bodes well. VKTX, disappointing open, right? So we had that huge move Monday afternoon on no news, no catalyst, just a lot of option volume. Soared. It was up nearly 17% for the day. And then yesterday gave it all, but well, not all of it back, gave most of it back at the open, all the way under 60 bucks after the noon hour, and then just embarked on a $10 rally. Well, no, over a 10% rally to close up almost flat, 66 and change. If it gets over 70 bucks, it's sitting here slightly in the green in the pre-market. It gets over 70 bucks. I'll look for some more strikes to play for upside. I'm not going to go on a rant too quick on VKTX or too long on VKTX. I keep saying too quick. Turns. So turns sold off 6% yesterday. No news, no catalyst. I guess giving back some of the profits over the last couple sessions. The good thing is the premiums held up in the on the calls, and not only that, a lot of the calls that were there was another large volume call day in regards to turns, so above historical averages in regards to how many calls were traded. Not only that, the 17 calls got hammered again. The September 10s got hammered, and then you look at the open interest today, and I'll have to do the exact math, but those are all, most of them are added to the open interest. So whether that's shorts protecting themselves via hedges, or if that's more folks positioning themselves ahead of data into September, I think that all just bodes well. And ideally would want to see turn rally enough for me to lock some of my calls into cover costs and ride the rest into the possible binary data. And still looking for some October strikes, but those premiums are pretty expensive. So I might wait a little bit before adding October strikes, because the longer it goes, the more the premiums will creep out of those October strikes, and then I can get some a little less expensive and then roll out on my September. So that's kind of the plan for now, but could change at any moment. So that's turns. ENVX, I closed my puts out yesterday, and I think the stock might be down 7, 8, or even 10% from my entry. But you look at the premiums, and I was doing the calculations, 22% implied move on the September strikes, and that's without earnings. They're not going to report earnings in September, so the option market is implying a 22% move on ENVX, which is nuts. But it's good if you got in before the premiums started to creep up. If you're in when the premiums are high like that, if the stock just flatlines for the next week or 2 weeks, the premiums are just going to erode. So as much as I think it heads under $8, I don't want to be in a spot where there's some kind of bounce. There's a huge short interest, so it's going to take one press release and the stock will squeeze. So I didn't want to be in a spot where I have to micromanage that position. So I locked it out for like for pretty much flat, and then I might look for some other inexpensive speculative puts if the stock, maybe it shows weakness today, or if there's some kind of catalyst. It is still under its 200-day moving average, which it struggled to break above. So that looks like that might be the spot. If it can't break above that, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. It's heading lower. But to make money on the put side has been very difficult. That's the MVX. Roku, I really love the setup here on Roku. I had some spec calls for this week. I think it trades near 70 bucks in the next week or two. It seems like there's hype going around this monetization of advertising in the content space, whether it be, mostly in regards to viewership on TV, sports, football season's coming. So I think there's a lot of different levers that I think are, well, not levers, but things that folks are going to start to focus on. And Roku, I think, is one of those platforms that's going to benefit. And you take a look at its moves off the lows. It's over its 50-day moving average. The Bollinger Band, the upper Bollinger Band is probably going to be a struggle, 62 and change. Maybe a day or two of consolidation, then a nice spike. But I don't think it's going to take much. Really love the Roku story. Talked about on my afternoon rant yesterday, Palo Alto added those spec calls. Still thinking it has a shot here into the possibly 380 and beyond in the coming days. Lock some of the spec calls in for 100% to cover costs. I'll ride the rest. Not sure I'll revisit with any more strikes, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it trade up into the 380s or so today, tomorrow, and Friday. Baidu, disappointing, right? So pulled yesterday with the rest of the market. Over this morning, Walmart announced that they're selling their stake in JD.com. So I don't know if that's some of the reason some of these China ADRs were selling off. Also, the China markets were a little weak overnight. And then this morning, Baidu was at 86 and change at the open of the pre-market. Well, actually 87, low 87s, and it's starting to bounce a little bit. So the hope here is it gets over 90 bucks. I can lock some or all my calls in and then revisit at earnings tomorrow morning. If not, if it does rally nice 2, 3, 4% to the upside, I'll probably just lock in most for profits, hold a couple spec calls into tomorrow. You know my thoughts here, and it's right here at the 50-day moving average, 89.51. If it breaks over that, I think it trades triple digits in the coming weeks. So my September strikes are flat. Hopefully they gain some premium here today, and I can lock some in to cover costs and ride free. If not, I'll lock them all in and revisit tomorrow morning. And then AMD, disappointing. I always call AMD like this little stepchild. So like bad to describe it. That's how I look at it. And it finally doing some acquisitions that might help expedite this AI craze and allow them to maybe gain some share. And it's not going to take much. I think it trades up into the 180s in the coming weeks. So add some calls yesterday into next week. Don't be surprised if I add more strikes on AMD into next week. I think that's about it. I'm trying to think of some of the other names. Oh, Redfin. I don't even know why I don't have Redfin on here, but I did it on my rant yesterday, early in the afternoon. Uh, it trades one times revenues. You start looking at some of its competitors, Zillow. Redfin has their hands in a lot of different baskets of possible avenues of growth and margins and earnings and things like that. They talked about on their recent earnings call that they're looking to be profitable towards the end of this year or the start of next year. Uh, if that's the case, this thing really starts to take off. Has a large short interest. You start looking 1150 or so, then that's why I got those strikes. I think that offers a decent risk reward. Don't be surprised if I add more strikes on strength here today. I think that's about it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.